Hello there, I'm the Biblical Translator, and so called because I tend to paraphrase the Bible and try to make it relevant to today so that people don't think that the Bible is old-fashioned. So today's scripture is taken from Mark 16, the resurrection. So it was Saturday evening when the Sabbath ended. Mary Magdalene went out and purchased burial spices. Now, burial spices back in the day is what they believed preserved the body because they believed in life after death. So they could anoint Jesus' body. Very early on Saturday morning, just at sunrise, they went to the tomb. But as they arrived, they looked up and down and saw that the tomb, which was very large, had already been rolled aside. Now, when they say it was very large, it's almost like they're more or less saying it was impossible for somebody to move it. But we have to remember that Joseph, just the day before, had rolled it to close the tomb. So it wasn't impossible for one man to roll that away and, make so that the Jesus could exit. But it's funny because I always imagined Jesus, when they were thinking about the resurrection, I always imagined him just kind of raising up. Like when you see pictures of the rapture, I imagined him just raising up, his body raising up and in a spiritual-like form and going up to the Father in heaven. But the implication here, let me just read what I've put. By having the stone rolled away, because when the two Marys went to the grave, the stone was moved away. So the implication there, or the inference, is that Jesus physically exited the tomb. Otherwise, why was the stone rolled away? Doesn't make sense, because they said there was a young angel sitting on the right side. The right side, that is significant, I believe, why he was sitting on the right-hand side, because why say it? But also, he was a young boy, and I was wondering if that was actually Jesus reborn, because remember, when he was making his way to Galilee after he resurrected, they said that he appeared to two of his followers in a different form. So I'm not sure what form it took, how the disciples would have known it was him if he was in a different form. And I was wondering if he was the angel that said that Jesus has gone on ahead. It's difficult to know, so I'm just hypothesizing, really. Because I do believe these words have meanings, and I don't believe anything is written by accident. So anyway, when Mary Magdalene et al., entered the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in a white robe, sitting on the right side. Was that the right side of the tomb? I'd imagine it is. The woman was shocked, but the angel said, "Don't be alarmed. If you're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified, he isn't here," which means he wasn't there in physical form. And he could have been talking in the third party or in the third person, even though he was Jesus, actually representing the bodily Jesus, the physical Jesus. He could have been the spiritual Jesus. He is risen from the dead. Look, this is where they laid the body. So now go and tell his disciples, including Peter, that Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there, just as he told you before he died. The women fled from the tomb frightened. The reason why I mentioned that I wondered if Jesus was the angel was because in Mark 16:12, he appeared in a different form to two of his followers who were walking from Jerusalem. So what is the message here? Sometimes we are warned about things that seem unbelievable. We deny it because it seems so preposterous. And then when it happens, we are surprised. How many times have you heard, "I told you so"? We have a tendency that if something is not logical or not explicable, we don't believe it. Faith is a concept of believing the unseen and the unknown. If you were to claim faith as the foundation for all you achieve and your choices, you'd be laughed at today. We live in a world where if you cannot provide evidence, it didn't happen. Faith, belief, words have no place in court without evidence. It's all balanced on proof. And so when we're thinking about how what happened there with Jesus and the resurrection, it would not be accepted here. It would not be tolerated today because the evidence, they would need physical evidence, and somebody saying something is not enough. Today, people don't rely on what people say. They want things recorded, they want dates, they want photographs, they want images to prove. And in Jesus' case, they would have probably wanted to see, so did somebody see him actually ascend? Did somebody actually see him exit the tomb? And if they didn't see it and they haven't got that evidence, they're not going to believe it. And they're going to kind of refute it until the day of Pentecost or whenever. They're just going to continually refute it. But that doesn't really matter for the believers, because the believers don't need proof. They don't need evidence. And that's the beauty of it all, because you don't have to worry about providing evidence. You don't have to justify what you believe. You don't have to speak out about your faith or your religion. It's just between you and the Father. You know, nobody can say it didn't happen if you, in your mind, believe that it did. And just because they have a different mindset, a scientific mindset, people today are very analytical. They don't just take things on face value. They're always examining and double-checking, very, very skeptical. Some people call that professional curiosity. And sometimes it's required, especially in some jobs that we do. But when it comes to how we are and how we behave in life, sometimes we have to just leave it to faith. Sometimes we just have to trust the process. Sometimes we just have to believe, because in believing it takes the burden off ourselves. It helps us to feel peace and comfort. If you just believe on faith, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry if it's right or if it's wrong. You don't have to second guess yourself. But if you are waiting on evidence and for somebody to prove who they are, as people do today, you go into relationships, people are always expecting people to prove. They're always sitting there waiting for somebody to slip up or somebody to reveal a part of themselves that is they didn't know before. So that is the life we live today. And I'm not saying it was any different back then, because they still wanted evidence. They still wanted Jesus to come off of the cross. They wanted him to, mash down the temple and split it in two and build it back again. They wanted him to do all sorts. They didn't believe he was the Son of God. So it's likewise today when people tell you who they are, unless you can prove it, unless you've got a record, or your reputation, goes before you, then, you just have to, they'll just judge you how they're going to judge you. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's best just to have a clean heart, be pure, be full of love, and just do what Jesus did. Don't try to defend. Just go with the flow. And the Almighty will take care of you in the end. And that's all for now. I'm the Biblical Translator, and I hope you enjoyed this word. Bye-bye.